The message was sent to Earth within hours. The response came back quickly. Earth agreed to negotiations, but with one condition. Talks would take place in neutral space. Earth's delegation would be escorted by Reaper class. "They want us to see what's coming," Thalen said to his staff. "They want us to be afraid." His intelligence officer, who'd been monitoring human communications, looked up from her console, face pale. "Sir, I've been listening to Reaper-class communications. They're excited about deployment." "Excited to fight?" "No, sir. Excited to scare us. They've been planning psychological tactics. The things they're planning to do." She looked ill. "Sir, we should accept whatever terms Earth offers." Thalen opened her files. What he read made his blood freeze. Reaper class had been planning their deployment for weeks. They'd studied Vorathian psychology, Vorathian fears, Vorathian weaknesses. They weren't planning to fight a war. They were planning to wage psychological warfare on a scale never before seen. And if Reaper class failed, Omega class waited. Thalen closed the files. "Get me a direct line to the Emperor. We need to accelerate these peace talks before it's too late." Reaper class arrived at the neutral zone on schedule. Commander Thalen watched their approach on long-range sensors and immediately knew something was wrong. The ships were painted black. Not clean military black, but matte black that seemed to absorb light. On each hull, painted in white, symbols, skulls, blood drops, tally marks numbering in the thousands. One ship had a simple message: "Abandon hope." "They want us to see them," his tactical officer said. "Those ships would be more effective with stealth coating. This is for intimidation." I agree. Everything about Reaper class was designed to unsettle. Where Echo class had been chaotic but recognizably military, Reaper class looked like something from nightmares. The conference was scheduled at Neutral Station Osiris, a diplomatic facility maintained by the Zelthare Commonwealth, one of few species remaining neutral. Thalen would represent the Dominion. Earth was sending someone named Elena Vazquez, listed as diplomatic liaison. But Reaper class was the real message. As Thalen's shuttle approached the station, he saw Reaper class ships holding position around it. 70 vessels, each crewed by fighters Earth had kept locked away until now. They didn't move in formations. They circled the station like predators. The station commander, a Zelthari named Voresh, met Thalen at the airlock. The Zelthari looked stressed, his chromatophore showing agitation patterns. "Commander Thalen, welcome. I must inform you, the human delegation has arrived and is waiting in Conference Hall 1. "How many?" "The diplomatic team is 4 people, but they insisted on bringing 7 of their Reaper-class personnel as security. I couldn't refuse without violating neutrality protocols." 7 Reaper-class fighters, here, on the station. Thalen felt his stomach tighten. Have they caused trouble? Varesh hesitated. Define trouble. They haven't violated any laws, but they're disturbing. They requested access to our observation deck. When we showed them, they spent 3 hours just watching space, not speaking. One of them was humming the same tune for 3 hours straight. Thalen had read the psychological profiles. Reaper class consisted of individuals with severe disorders, sociopaths, psychopaths, people with no capacity for empathy or fear. Earth had found the most disturbed people in their prisons and asylums and trained them for war.
The conference room was large, designed for delegations of dozens. The human team sat on one side. Dr. Elena Vasquez was a middle-aged woman in a simple suit, looking like any bureaucrat. Next to her were 3 advisors, equally unremarkable. Behind them stood 7 Reaper-class fighters. They weren't in uniform. Earth had abandoned military protocol entirely with Reaper-class. They wore whatever they wanted. One wore a tattered jacket covered in patches. Another wore civilian clothes splattered with what looked like old bloodstains. A third wore mismatched armor pieces. But their eyes. They watched him with intensity that wasn't quite human. Not hostile exactly. More like scientists observing specimens, or predators evaluating prey. One of them, a tall woman with scars covering every visible inch of skin, smiled at him. It wasn't a friendly smile. Thalen took his seat, flanked by his security detail. Professional Vorathian soldiers, trained and disciplined. They looked uncomfortable facing the 7 humans. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Dr. Vasquez began, voice pleasant and professional. "The United Earth Coalition wishes to discuss terms for ending this conflict. The Dominion is willing to listen, but we will not surrender. That is non-negotiable. We're not asking you to surrender. We're asking you to leave. Withdraw forces from human-claimed territory. Acknowledge our sovereignty. In return, we cease all offensive operations. You hold 16 of our systems belonging to the Dominion for centuries. We hold them because you can't defend them, and because defending them costs more than they're worth. We're offering you a way to end this without further loss." One of the Reaper-class fighters laughed, a short, sharp bark. Vasquez glanced back. He fell silent, but the smile remained. Thalen tried to ignore him. "The Dominion requires reparations. You've cost us thousands of lives, enormous resources. We invaded you. You defended yourself. If anyone owes reparations, it's you. We offered you a place in the Dominion. You chose war."
The negotiations continued for 2 hours. Thalen made demands, Vasquez countered them. They argued territory, resources, responsibility. Diplomatic theater, both sides positioning for advantage. All the while, the 7 Reaper-class fighters stood silent, watching. Occasionally, one whispered to another. Once, one of them yawned, looking bored. Finally, Thalen called for recess. He needed to consult with the War Council. Vasquez agreed. Both delegations retreated to quarters. In his private room, Thalen opened a secure channel to Varathia Prime. The Emperor's face appeared. "Report. The humans are offering peace, but on their terms. No reparations, no acknowledgement of Dominion authority, just mutual withdrawal and recognition of boundaries. Unacceptable. The Dominion does not retreat. Your Majesty, I recommend we accept their terms." The Emperor's expression hardened. "Explain." Thalen chose words carefully. "I've seen Reaper-class now. Not in combat, just standing in a room. And they're wrong. Something fundamentally wrong with them. They don't act like soldiers or even like Echo-class. They act like we're entertainment, like this is all a game and we're the toys." "You fear them." "I fear what they represent. If Echo-class cause this much trouble, what will Reaper-class do? And they're still Omega-class." The Emperor was quiet. "I will not decide this alone. I am convening an emergency session of the full Imperial Senate. They'll vote on whether to accept Earth's terms or continue the war. How long? 5 days. Can you stall negotiations? I'll try. The channel closed. Thalen sat alone, thinking. 5 days. He needed to keep humans talking for 5 days while the Senate decided the Empire's fate. A knock at his door. One of his security officers entered, looking disturbed. "Sir, we have a situation. One of the human Reaper-class personnel has requested a private meeting with you. No witnesses." Thalen felt a chill. "Which one?" "The one they call Marcus Fenrir." "His file." "Sir, you should read his file." Thalen pulled up the information. Marcus Fenrir. Age 36. Former Special Forces. Discharged after an incident where he'd killed 19 enemy combatants in close combat, mostly with his bare hands. After discharge, arrested for multiple violent crimes. During imprisonment, killed 4 other inmates in separate incidents, all ruled self-defense but suspicious. Psychological evaluation: severe antisocial personality disorder, possible sadism, high intelligence, complete absence of fear response. Why does he want to meet me? He said he has information you need about Omega Class. That decided it. I'll meet him, but maintain security outside. Sir, are you certain? Thalen stood. If the humans wanted me dead, they could have done it already. This is something else. The meeting room was small, just a table and 2 chairs. Marcus Fenrir was already there, sitting casually with feet on the table. He was younger than Thalen expected, dark hair, eyes almost black. His face was unmarked except for a single scar running from left temple to jawline. Commander Thalen, Fenrir said, not bothering to stand. Thanks for meeting. I know this is irregular. Thalen sat across from him. Your diplomat didn't send you. Vasquez? Nah, Sheeta told me not to come. But I wanted to talk to you privately, soldier to soldier, you know? You're not a soldier. You're a criminal. True, very true. But I used to be a soldier, and you still are. So we can talk straight, right? No political bullshit? What do you want? Fenrir's smile faded. I want to give you advice. Accept the peace terms. Take the deal. Go home. Why would you want that? Aren't you here to fight? Oh, I'm here to fight. I'm really hoping you say no, actually. I've been locked up for 9 years. I really want to hurt someone. He leaned forward. But I thought you should know what you're getting into if you keep this war going. Threats? Facts. Echo Class was professionals having fun. Reaper Class is monsters off the leash. But Omega Class? Omega Class is something different entirely. Then tell me, what is Omega Class? Fenrir looked uncomfortable for the first time. I don't know all details. They don't tell us everything. But I know some things. He paused. Omega Class isn't fighters. It's not soldiers at all. Then what is it? It's everything Earth tried and decided was too immoral to use. Biological weapons targeting specific species, psychological warfare using subliminal programming, viruses that rewrite behavior, nanomachines that infiltrate and sabotage from within. Every evil experiment Earth's governments shut down over the last century, they kept the data, kept the research, put it all into Omega Class. That would violate every galactic treaty. Yeah, well, you started a war with us. Treaties went out the window. And here's the thing, Commander.
If they deploy Omega-class, it won't just hurt your military, it'll hurt your entire species, your civilians, your children, everything. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to save you, Fenrir said, and for a moment he sounded almost sincere. Look, I'm a bad person, I know that. I've done terrible things. I'll probably do more. But even I think Omega-class goes too far. It's not war anymore. It's extinction. Earth wouldn't do that. They wouldn't commit genocide. Earth would do anything to survive. And right now, survival means winning this war. If you force them to deploy Omega-class, they will. And then, everyone loses. Thalen studied the human. Why tell me this? Why warn me? Fenrir shrugged. Maybe I'm getting soft, or maybe I just like you guys. You're honorable, disciplined, everything I'm not. It'd be a shame to wipe you out. He paused. Plus, if Omega gets deployed, there's no more fighting. And I really like fighting. So this is selfish. Everything I do is selfish, Commander. But that doesn't mean I'm wrong. Fenrir stood. Think about it. You've got 5 days before the Senate votes, right? I checked your procedures. Use that time to really think whether your pride is worth your species. He walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. You see these 7 of us here as security? We're not the scariest ones in Reaper class. We're the ones stable enough to be in public. The really crazy ones are still on the ships. Trust me, you don't want that. The door closed.
Thalen sat alone, mind racing. Could the human be trusted? Was this psychological warfare, trying to make him afraid? Or was Fenrir genuinely warning him? He opened Secure Channel to his intelligence chief. I need everything we have on Earth's weapons research programs. Everything they've ever developed or tested, no matter how classified. The information came back within hours. As Thalen read, his blood ran cold. Earth had indeed developed biological weapons, diseases targeting specific genetic markers. They'd tested them, refined them, then officially destroyed them and signed treaties banning their use. But the data still existed. Earth had researched psychological warfare, sounds and frequencies, inducing fear or aggression, drugs altering behavior, mind control using technology and chemistry. Deemed too dangerous, research locked away, but the research still existed. Omega-class wasn't a bluff, it was real. And if Earth deployed it, the war would become something far worse than a conflict between soldiers. Thalen made his decision. He opened Priority Channel to the Emperor. Your Majesty, I need to speak before the Senate. I have new information vital to their decision. 5 days later, the Imperial Senate gathered. 7,000 senators representing every major world in the Dominion. They'd heard arguments for and against peace, reviewed casualty reports, studied strategic analysis. Now Thalen stood before them and told them about Omega-class. He showed them the research, explained what Earth was capable of, made clear that continuing the war risked not just military defeat, but something far worse. When he finished, the chamber was silent. Then the Emperor spoke. I call for a vote. Should the Dominion accept Earth's peace terms or continue the war? The vote wasn't close. 5,800 senators voted for peace. Only 1,200 voted to continue fighting. The Dominion, for the first time in 6,000 years, chose to retreat. The next day, Commander Thalen met with Dr. Vasquez again. The Dominion accepts your terms. We'll withdraw from disputed territory. We acknowledge Earth's independence and sovereignty. Dr. Vasquez nodded. Thank you, Commander. You've made the right choice. Behind her, Marcus Fenrir smiled. Damn, I was really hoping you'd say no. I know,
Thalen said. That's why I said yes. The treaty was signed 8 weeks after the Senate vote, held at Neutral Station Osiris, with representatives from 15 neutral species. The document was simple. The Varathian Dominion would withdraw from all disputed systems. Earth would cease offensive operations. Both sides would establish diplomatic relations and open trade negotiations. Neither side claimed victory. Both sides pretended the war had been a misunderstanding. Commander Thalen signed for the Dominion. Dr. Elena Vazquez signed for Earth. They shook hands for the cameras. Both knew they were lying. The Dominion had lost. Not militarily, but they'd lost nonetheless. They'd blinked first. After 6,000 years of never surrendering, never retreating, they'd chosen peace over victory. And Earth had won. Not by destroying the Dominion's fleets or conquering their worlds, but by making victory too expensive, by being willing to go farther into darkness than the Dominion could stomach. After the ceremony ended and delegations prepared to depart, Thalen found himself on the observation deck, looking at the stars. He wasn't alone. Marcus Fenrir stood nearby, also watching the void. "You're not celebrating," Thalen observed. Fenrir shrugged. "Nothing to celebrate. War's over. I go back to Earth, probably back to prison eventually. My vacation's done." "You want it to fight." "I always want to fight. It's what I'm good at, what I'm for. But peace is probably better for everyone else, so whatever." Thalen was quiet, and then he asked the question bothering him since their first meeting. Was Omega Class real or a bluff to scare us? Fenrir looked at him. "What do you think?" "I think it was real. I saw the research. Earth has the capability." "Then there's your answer." "But would Earth have actually used it?" Fenrir smiled, but it was a sad smile. "You know what's funny? I don't know. I really don't. Earth's government is desperate to look civilized. They want to be the good guys. They locked people like me away because we reminded them what humanity can be. But when survival was threatened, they let us out, armed us, pointed us at you. So would they use Omega Class if they had to?" "I think they would, because survival beats morality every time. But I'm glad you didn't make them choose." The withdrawal. The Dominion fleet began withdrawal the next day. Ship by ship, they abandoned systems they'd briefly held. Earth didn't chase them. They simply moved in and took control of empty space. Thalen returned to Varathia Prime to find the capital in turmoil. News of the peace treaty had been received poorly. Protests filled streets. Some called for the Emperor's removal. Others demanded the war restart. Most were just confused. How had the mighty Dominion been defeated by a species that could barely reach the stars? Thalen was called before the Emperor one final time. They met privately in the Emperor's personal chambers. "The Senate is calling for inquiries," the Emperor said. He looked old, older than Thalen had ever seen him. "They want to know how we lost. They want someone to blame." "They'll blame me," Thalen said. "I'm prepared for that." "No," the Emperor said. "They'll blame me. I made the final decision. I chose peace over glory. I'll take responsibility." "Your Majesty, you saved the Empire. If we had continued, if they had deployed Omega Class—" "I know," the Emperor interrupted. "I know what I saved us from. But the people don't understand. They see only that we retreated, that we lost." He walked to a window overlooking the capital. "Do you know the real lesson of this war, Thalen?" "No, Your Majesty." "Power isn't enough. Technology isn't enough. We were stronger, more advanced, more organized. We should have won easily. But we lost because we couldn't match their willingness to suffer. We couldn't match their capacity for darkness. We Warthasians are civilized. We have rules, honor, traditions. These things make us great, but they also limit us. The humans have rules too, but they're willing to break them when necessary. They're willing to become monsters to survive. We are not. Is that a weakness? Thalen asked. I don't know, the Emperor admitted. Perhaps it's both strength and weakness. We remained true to ourselves, but we lost.
A month later, Thalen retired from military service. He was given full honors, a generous pension, a quiet estate far from the capital. The public never knew his role in peace negotiations. History would remember him only as one of many commanders in a war the Dominion preferred to forget. He spent his days writing a manual on warfare, but not the kind the Dominion had taught for millennia. This was something different, a study of psychological warfare, asymmetric combat, fighting enemies who didn't follow traditional rules. The book was titled, Never Fight Species Who Have Nothing to Lose. It became required reading at the Imperial War Academy within 7 years. On Earth, the aftermath was different but equally complicated. The Phantom Legion personnel returned to Earth as heroes. Parades were held, medals awarded, politicians gave speeches about bravery and sacrifice. But within weeks, reality set in. Earth had sent criminals and psychopaths to fight a war, and now they were back. Most couldn't simply return to civilian life. Many didn't want to. The government's solution was pragmatic but cynical. They offered 3 choices to Phantom Legion veterans. First, return to prison to serve original sentences minus time served in combat. Second, accept exile to newly established frontier colonies far from Earth's major population centers. Third, join a new organization called the Frontier Defense Corps, essentially becoming permanent mercenaries for hire. Most chose exile or the Corps. Very few chose prison. Marcus Fenrir chose exile. He and several hundred other Reaper-class personnel took ships to a new frontier world called New Meridian. Barely habitable, edge of human space. Perfect for people Earth wanted to forget. Dr. Elena Vasquez, who'd negotiated the treaty, was promoted to ambassador. Her first assignment? Establish formal diplomatic relations with the Varathian Dominion. It was awkward. Everyone knew what had really happened. Everyone knew the peace was built on fear, not respect. But trade agreements were signed, cultural exchanges arranged. Slowly, carefully, humans and Varathians learned to coexist. The truth about Omega Class leaked eventually. News organizations obtained classified documents. Scientists came forward confirming, yes, Earth had indeed developed weapons targeting specific species. Yes, they'd been prepared to use them if necessary. The scandal dominated news cycles for months. Investigations launched. Government officials questioned. Some resigned. Others faced prosecution. But most people understood. When faced with extinction, humanity had been willing to do anything to survive. Right or wrong, it had worked. 10 years after the war ended, Commander Thalen received an unexpected visitor at his estate. Security system announced a shuttle approaching, registered to a human diplomatic vessel. Curious, Thalen went to greet his guest. He was surprised to see Dr. Vasquez walking up his garden path. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said, bowing slightly. "This is unexpected." "Former ambassador," she corrected with a smile. "I retired last year. I hope you don't mind the unannounced visit." "Not at all. Please come in." They sat in his study, drinking tea imported from a Zelthari merchant. For a while they made small talk, weather, galactic politics, mutual acquaintances. Finally, Vasquez got to the point. "I came to ask you a question, something that's bothered me for 10 years. Ask, why did you really advocate for peace? Was it fear of Omega class, fear of casualties, or something else?" Phelan considered his answer carefully. "All those reasons, but mostly, I think, because I realized we were fighting the wrong war." "What do you mean?" "We were fighting to win. You were fighting to not lose. Those are very different motivations. We could win every battle and still lose the war, because you would never stop. You couldn't afford to stop." Vasquez nodded slowly. "You understood us better than we understood ourselves. Perhaps, or perhaps I just recognize something from my own species' history. The Varathian Dominion wasn't always an empire. 6,000 years ago, we were a single planet divided into hundreds of nations. We fought wars constantly, brutal wars, where entire populations were destroyed. What changed? We grew up," Phelan said. "We learned there are better ways to resolve conflicts. We developed honor codes, diplomatic protocols, rules of war. We became civilized. And those rules served us well for millennia, until we met you." "Until you met us," Vasquez agreed. "You reminded us of what we used to be, young, violent, willing to do anything to survive. And we realized all our rules, all our civilization meant nothing if we couldn't protect ourselves from species that didn't share those rules." Vasquez looked out the window at Phelan's garden. "Do you think we're capable of becoming civilized like you?" "I think you are already civilized," Phelan said. "You have laws, culture, art, science. The fact that you're willing to break those rules to survive doesn't make you uncivilized. It makes you pragmatic." "Some would say it makes us monsters." "Some of your people are monsters," Phelan said bluntly. "I met them. But they're your monsters. You created them, controlled them, used them for a purpose. That takes a kind of strength we Vorathians lack." They talked for hours, about the war, about peace, about the future. When Vasquez finally left, Phelan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Perhaps the two species could learn from each other. The Varathian Dominion could learn flexibility, pragmatism, willingness to adapt. Humanity could learn discipline, patience, the value of rules. Or perhaps they'd go to war again someday. Perhaps the peace was temporary, just a pause before the next conflict. But for now, there was peace, and that was enough. 15 years after the treaty, a new threat emerged. The Kravik swarm, a species of hive-minded insectoids, began expanding aggressively into both human and Varathian space. They didn't negotiate, didn't accept diplomacy. They simply consumed everything in their path. The Varathian Dominion mobilized its fleets. Humanity mobilized the Frontier Defense Corps. But separately, neither seemed capable of stopping the swarm. Then, someone in Earth's government had an idea. The joint operation was unprecedented. Varathian ships providing advanced weapons and defensive technology. Human fighters providing unpredictable tactics and fearless aggression. Working together, coordinating, for the first time. The Battle of Kravik's Prime lasted 4 weeks. Brutal. Both sides took heavy casualties. But in the end, the combined force destroyed the swarm's central hive and broke their invasion. Phelan, brought out of retirement to advise on the operation, stood on the command deck of a Varathian flagship, watching the final battle. Next to him stood Marcus Fenrir, now officially a consultant with the Frontier Defense Corps. "You know what's funny?" Fenrir said, watching explosions light the darkness. "We spent a year trying to kill each other. Now we're fighting side by side." "War makes strange allies," Thalen said. "I guess, but damn, it feels good to be fighting again. I missed this." "You never change, do you?" "Nope, still a monster, but now I'm your monster too." Thalen couldn't help but smile. "I suppose that's progress." The Kravik swarm was defeated. The joint operation declared a success. New treaties signed, formalizing military cooperation between Earth and the Dominion. Historians would later mark this as the real end of the human-Varathian War, not the treaty that ended the fighting, but the battle where former enemies became allies. On New Meridian, the frontier colony where many Phantom Legion veterans had settled, a monument was erected. It listed names of all who died in the war, human and Varathian both. At the bottom,
Someone had carved a message. Nobody knew who put it there. No government ever officially acknowledged it. But everyone who saw it understood. They wanted war, but not this one. We gave them chaos, and chaos won. May we never need to do it again. Thalen visited the monument once, near the end of his life. He read the message and thought about all he'd seen, all he'd learned. The galaxy was bigger than he'd imagined, more dangerous, more complicated. And humanity, this young species that had barely learned to reach the stars, had taught the Dominion a lesson 6,000 years of conquest had not. That civilization was fragile, that rules only worked when everyone followed them, that sometimes, to preserve civilization, you had to be willing to set it aside. It was a terrible lesson, but a necessary one. As Thalen turned to leave, he saw a figure standing nearby. Marcus Fenrir, older now, but still carrying himself like a predator. They hadn't arranged to meet, but neither was surprised to see the other. "You come here often?" Fenrir asked. "First time. You?" "Every year. Anniversary of the treaty. I figure somebody should remember." "Remember what? The victory?" Fenrir shook his head. "Not the victory. The cost." They stood together in silence, two old warriors from opposite sides, watching the sun set on a world built by those society had cast aside. Finally, Fenrir spoke quietly. "You ever wonder if we did the right thing, making peace instead of finishing the fight?" Thalen considered. "Every day, but then I think about what would have happened if we hadn't. Omega class, total war, extinction." He paused. "We both chose survival over pride. That's not weakness, that's wisdom." Fenrir nodded slowly. "Yeah, I guess you're right." They stood a moment longer. Then Thalen extended his hand. Fenrir looked at it for a moment, then took it. A firm handshake between former enemies, a symbol of a peace neither had wanted, but both had chosen. Because in the end, survival mattered more than victory. And sometimes, the greatest triumph was knowing when to stop fighting. As Thalen walked away, Fenrir called after him. "Hey, Commander!" Thalen turned. "If we ever have to do this again, fight together against something worse, you got my back, right?" Thalen smiled. "And you have mine." It was a promise neither thought they'd ever make. But in a galaxy full of unknowns, full of threats lurking in the darkness between stars, it was a promise worth making. Because humanity had taught the Varathians one final lesson, that sometimes the monsters you fear become the allies you need. And sometimes
The greatest strength comes from accepting your own darkness and learning to control it. The stars stretched endlessly above them, cold, distant, eternal, full of wonders, full of horrors. And somewhere out there, in the vast expanse of space, other civilizations watched and wondered, what would happen if they made the same mistake the Varathians had? What would happen if they pushed humanity too far? The answer was simple. They would learn, as the Dominion had learned, that some species should never be underestimated, that some wars should never be started, and that humanity, when pushed to the edge, would do whatever it took to survive, no matter the cost. For more such thrilling science fiction stories, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Starborn Tales.